David Reed dragged his luggage through the gleaming corridors of Galactic University Station Arcturus. Students from dozens of worlds hurried past him, their scales glinting under artificial lights, their wings folding against narrow doorways, their multiple eyes watching him with curiosity. He was one of only 15 humans at the entire university, and he could feel the stares following him as he walked. Behind him, a large transport crate floated on anti-gravity pads. Inside, Luna pressed her nose against the mesh window and whined softly. David reached back and tapped the crate twice, their signal that everything was fine. The gray wolf settled down, her amber eyes tracking every movement in the busy hallway. "You must be the new human student," a voice chirped above him. David looked up to see an avian creature perched on a nearby pipe. Her feathers shimmered between blue and green and her large eyes blinked sideways. "I am Reyna. I was assigned to help you settle in." "Thanks," David said, grateful for a friendly face. "I'm David. This whole place is amazing." Reyna fluttered down and landed beside him, her taloned feet clicking on the metal floor. She glanced at the transport crate with curiosity. "What do you have in there? A companion animal?" "Yeah, that's Luna. She's been with me since I was 16. Couldn't leave her behind." "How wonderful," Reyna said warmly. "I have a small singing creature from my homeworld in my quarters. Companion animals make this place feel less lonely." "What species is yours?" "She's a wolf," David said casually, not noticing how Reyna's feathers suddenly stood on end. "A wolf," Reyna repeated slowly. "You mean like the extinct Earth predator, Canis lupus?" David stopped walking and turned to face her. "Extinct? Wolves aren't extinct. There are thousands of them back on Earth. Luna's parents live in a sanctuary in Canada." Reyna's head tilted at an angle that would have broken a human neck. "That is impossible. The Galactic Database clearly lists wolves as extinct for over 400 years. They were apex predators that went extinct during Earth's industrial collapse period." "Someone got their facts really wrong then," David laughed. "Wolves almost went extinct once back in the 20th century, but humans brought them back. They're doing great now. We even reintroduced them to places they'd been wiped out from." The avian student looked genuinely confused. "You brought back apex predators? Deliberately?" "Sure. Ecosystems need predators to stay balanced. When wolves disappeared from Yellowstone, the whole park started falling apart. We brought them back in 1995 and everything recovered." Reyna was quiet for a long moment. "David, I do not think you understand. Wolves are listed as Class 5 predators in our database. They are described as pack-hunting carnivores that could take down prey 5 times their size. The database says they were one of the most efficient killers on your planet." "Well, yeah, they're good hunters," David admitted, "but they're not monsters. Humans have lived alongside wolves for tens of thousands of years. We domesticated them into dogs. Dogs came from wolves?" Reyna's voice went up an octave. "About 40,000 years ago. We've been friends with wolves longer than we've had agriculture." They reached David's assigned quarters and he pressed his hand to the access panel. The door slid open to reveal a small but comfortable room with a sleeping area, a study desk, and enough floor space for Luna to stretch out. He guided the transport crate inside and began opening the latches. "David, wait," Reyna said nervously from the doorway. "Perhaps we should contact the station veterinary staff first. They should examine any animal before it is released in shared living spaces." "Luna's got all her shots and health certificates," David said, pulling out a data pad. "Everything was cleared before we left Earth. She's healthier than I am." He opened the crate door. Luna stepped out cautiously, her paws silent on the floor. She was large for a female wolf, her gray fur thick and well-groomed. She stretched, yawned to show impressive teeth, then immediately went to David and pressed against his leg. Reyna had backed up against the far wall, her feathers completely puffed out. "Hey, it's okay," David said gently. He knelt down and scratched behind Luna's ears. The wolf's tail wagged slowly. "See, she's friendly." "Luna, this is Reyna. Say hello." Luna looked at the avian and tilted her head. She took a step forward and Reyna let out a small chirp of fear. "She won't hurt you," David promised. "Wolves are actually pretty shy around strangers. She's more scared of you than you are of her." "I sincerely doubt that," Reyna managed to say, but she stayed where she was. Luna sat down and looked at David as if asking what all the fuss was about. Over the next hour, David unpacked while explaining wolf behavior to Reyna, who slowly moved away from the wall but kept a careful distance. He showed her pictures of his family back home with Luna, of wolves in the wild, of the sanctuary where Luna's pack lived. Your species truly lives peacefully with these predators? Reyna asked, still amazed. More than peaceful. Millions of humans have dogs as companions. They're family members, and wild wolves mostly avoid humans anyway. There hasn't been a confirmed wolf attack on a human in North America in over 100 years. This is extraordinary, Reyna said quietly. I must inform Professor Quinn. He teaches xenobiology and his entire lecture series on Earth predators may need revision. Happy to help, David said. Actually, do you think he'd let me do a presentation? I'm a biology student. This could be a great project. Reyna looked at Luna, who had curled up on a cushion and closed her eyes, completely relaxed. I think that would be very educational. Very educational indeed. She left, promising to return later with information about class schedules. David sat down next to Luna and rubbed her neck. Well, girl, I think we just became the most interesting thing at this university. Luna's tail thumped once against the floor, and she went back to sleep. Outside, through the station's massive windows, a dozen worlds hung in the darkness of space. David smiled. This was going to be an interesting semester. Professor Quinn stood before his xenobiology class, his compound eyes reflecting the light from multiple angles. The insectoid professor's chitinous body clicked softly as he moved, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display floating above his desk. Images of strange creatures from across the galaxy rotated slowly in the air. Your assignment for this cycle is straightforward, he announced in his precise, clicking voice. Each of you will research and present on one extinct species from your homeworld. You will explain why it went extinct, what role it played in its ecosystem, and what lessons we can learn from its loss. David sat in the middle row, his data pad open and ready. Around him, students of 24 different species whispered to each other, already planning their projects. Beside him, Reyna shifted on her specialized perch. I will be presenting on the greater wind serpent, she whispered to David. They went extinct when industrial farming destroyed their nesting cliffs. Very tragic. Sounds interesting, David whispered back. His mind was already racing through options. Earth had lost so many species over the centuries. Passenger pigeons, dodo birds, countless others that humanity had driven to extinction through carelessness or greed. Professor Quinn continued. I expect thorough research. Use the galactic database, historical records, and if possible, any preserved genetic samples or recordings. This assignment is worth 30% of your grade. A student in the front row, a reptilian named Tav, raised one clawed hand. Professor, what if our species did not keep good records of extinct animals? Then you must work with what is available, Quinn replied. Science often requires us to draw conclusions from incomplete data. David's hand went up. Several students turned to look at the human, curious about what he would ask. Yes, David. Professor Quinn's antennae twitched with interest. Would it be acceptable to present on wolves? The classroom went silent. Even the usual background hum of the station's air recyclers seemed to fade. Professor Quinn's mandibles opened and closed twice before he responded. Canis lupus, the extinct mega-predator of Earth? Yes, sir. I have first-hand experience with them. Now every student was staring at David. Tav had pushed his chair back from his desk, his scales rippling with an instinctive fear response. A gelatinous student in the back row bubbled nervously. Professor Quinn approached David's desk slowly. David, I must clarify something. Wolves have been extinct for over 400 years according to our records. How could you possibly have first-hand experience? Because the records are wrong, David said simply. Wolves aren't extinct. There are healthy populations all over Earth. I grew up near a wolf sanctuary, and I brought one with me to the station. The classroom erupted. Students shouted questions in a dozen languages. Tav actually fell out of his chair trying to get farther away. Reyna covered her face with one wing as if she had known this moment would come but had hoped to delay it. Silence, Professor Quinn commanded, his voice amplified by the room's audio system. The students quieted, but the tension remained thick in the air. David, this is a serious claim. Are you telling me that apex predators classified as extinct in our database are not only alive but living on Earth in sufficient numbers that humans interact with them? Yes, sir. And you claim to have brought one to this station? Her name is Luna. She's in my quarters right now. Professor Quinn's antennae drooped, a sign of extreme confusion in his species. There is a Class 5 predator living in the student housing section of this station. Class 5 seems a bit dramatic, David said. She's well trained. She's been around people her whole life. She's basically a big dog. Dogs are domesticated wolves, a student in the back said, reading from her datapad. This database entry says dogs were created by humans over 40,000 years ago through selective breeding of wolves. That's correct, David confirmed. Tav, who had climbed back into his chair but had pushed it against the far wall, spoke in a shaking voice. You are saying humans took apex predators and changed them into companion animals? My ancestors did, yes. It was probably the smartest thing humans ever did. Dogs have been helping us ever since. Professor Quinn returned to his desk and pulled up the galactic database entry on wolves. The holographic display showed a snarling wolf, teeth bared, with text describing it as a dangerous pack predator that had gone extinct during Earth's environmental crisis, centuries ago. This entry is clearly outdated, the professor muttered. David, I believe a demonstration would be valuable for the entire class. Would you be willing to bring this wolf to your presentation? David grinned. Absolutely. Luna's great with new people. Well, usually, she might need a few minutes to adjust to so many different species. We will take all necessary precautions, Professor Quinn said firmly. He turned to address the class. In 3 days, David will present on Canis lupus. I expect all of you to attend. This will be a historic moment for xenobiology. We will be observing a species thought extinct for centuries. We will also have station security present, Tav added quickly. That seems prudent, the professor agreed. After class ended, students crowded around David asking dozens of questions. How big was the wolf? How dangerous was it? Had it ever attacked anyone? Could it really be controlled by a human? Did it eat people? David answered as patiently as he could, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They genuinely believed he had brought a monster to live among them. It reminded him of old Earth movies where aliens were always the scary invaders. Now he was the human bringing something the aliens found terrifying. Raina waited until the crowd dispersed before approaching him. David, I hope you understand what you have done. The entire station will hear about this by evening. A living wolf is going to cause quite a disturbance. People are scared of something they don't understand, David said. Once they meet Luna, they'll see there's nothing to be afraid of. I hope you are correct, Raina said quietly. Because if anything goes wrong, if your wolf reacts badly to so many alien species, it could cause an incident that affects all human students here. David had not thought about that. He felt a flutter of worry in his stomach. Luna was calm and well-trained, but she had never been around aliens before. What if she got scared? What if someone did something that triggered her instincts? She'll be fine, he said, more to convince himself than Raina. I've worked with her since she was a pup. She trusts me completely. Then I hope that trust extends to trusting your judgment when you bring her before a room full of aliens, Raina said. I will be there to support you, David, but please be careful. As David walked back to his quarters, he could feel eyes following him through every corridor. Word had already spread. The human had brought an extinct predator to the station. By the time he reached his door, his communication device had received 47 messages from students he had never met, all asking about the wolf inside his room. Luna looked up from her cushion and wagged her tail. David sat down beside her and scratched her ears. Ready to be famous, girl? He asked softly. Because in 3 days you're going to meet the entire xenobiology department. Luna yawned and put her head back down, completely unconcerned about the chaos she was about to cause. The lecture hall looked more like a military operation than an academic presentation. David stood outside the door, Luna sitting calmly beside him on a leash, and watched through the window as station security positioned themselves around the room. They carried stun weapons and neural disruptors, equipment designed to stop dangerous creatures without killing them. This is absurd, David muttered. Luna looked up at him and tilted her head. He could feel her confusion through the leash. She sensed his nervousness and did not understand why. Raina approached from down the corridor, her feathers sleek and her posture formal. She had dressed in what David had learned was her species' version of ceremonial clothing, a woven vest decorated with small shells from her homeworld. The room is completely full, she reported. Professor Quinn invited the entire xenobiology department. There are also students from other fields who heard about the presentation. I counted at least 80 people inside. Great, David said weakly. No pressure. Station security insisted on safety protocols, Raina continued. When you enter, Luna must remain on the leash at all times. You must stay at least 3 meters from the audience, and if she shows any signs of aggression, security will intervene immediately. David looked down at Luna, who was now lying on the floor, her tail swishing slowly. Did you hear that, girl? They think you're dangerous. Luna yawned, showing teeth that made Raina take a step backward. Sorry, David said quickly. She's just tired. She was up late last night because some students kept walking past my door to try to catch a glimpse of her. The door to the lecture hall slid open. Professor Quinn stood there, his compound eyes glittering with excitement and perhaps a touch of fear. David, we are ready for you. Please proceed slowly and announce your movements clearly so as not to startle anyone. David took a deep breath and stepped inside. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Students in the front rows scrambled backward, climbing over desks to get farther away. A gelatinous student in the third row actually liquefied in panic, losing their solid form completely. Tav had positioned himself in the very back corner of the room, as far from the door as physically possible. Luna's ears went back flat against her head. She pressed against David's leg, clearly uncomfortable with the fear she could sense in the room. Her eyes darted from one alien to another, trying to assess the situation. It's okay, David whispered to her. They're just scared. Stay calm. He walked slowly to the front of the room where a clear space had been marked on the floor with yellow tape. Professor Quinn had retreated to a position behind his desk, using it as a barrier between himself and the wolf. Thank you all for coming, David began, his voice shaking slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again, stronger this time. My name is David Reed and this is Luna. She's a gray wolf, Canis lupus, from Earth. As you can see, wolves are not extinct. A murmur ran through the crowd. Students whispered to each other in their various languages. One brave student near the middle raised a tentacle. How is it possible that such a dangerous predator still exists? Our records clearly show environmental collapse wiped them out. Your records are based on incomplete data, David explained. Wolves did almost go extinct on Earth, but that was in the 20th century. Humans hunted them nearly to extinction because we didn't understand how important they were to our ecosystems. But then we realized our mistake and brought them back. You brought them back? Another student asked, incredulous. Why would you bring back predators? Because we needed them, David said simply. He activated the holographic projector he had brought, and images filled the air above his head. This is Yellowstone National Park. In 1926, wolves were eliminated from the park. For 70 years, there were no wolves. And look what happened. The images showed overgrazed valleys, eroded riverbanks, and dying forests. Without wolves to hunt them, elk populations exploded. They ate everything. Valleys that had been full of young trees became barren. Rivers changed course because there were no tree roots to hold the soil. The entire ecosystem collapsed. He changed the image. Then in 1995, humans reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone. Within 10 years, everything changed. Trees grew back. Rivers stabilized. Dozens of other species returned. The wolves saved the park. Professor Quinn leaned forward, his fear momentarily forgotten in his scientific interest. You are saying that removing an apex predator caused a cascade effect that damaged the entire ecosystem? Exactly. We call it a trophic cascade. Predators don't just kill prey. They change prey behavior, which affects plants, which affects soil, which affects water systems. Everything is connected. Luna, sensing that David's nervousness had faded, relaxed against his leg. Her tongue lolled out slightly and her tail began to wag in a slow, steady rhythm. A student in the middle row pointed. It is displaying pleasure responses. The tail movement is similar to how my species shows contentment. Wolves are social animals, David explained. They communicate through body language. A wagging tail usually means she's happy or relaxed. Right now, Luna's telling everyone that she's comfortable. Even though she is surrounded by potential prey animals, Tav called from the back, his voice shrill with fear. David smiled gently. Luna doesn't see you as prey. She was raised around humans. She's been socialized since she was 8 weeks old. She's never hunted in her life. I feed her prepared meat and dry food. He gave a gentle tug on the leash. Luna, sit. The wolf sat immediately, her eyes never leaving David's face. Good girl. Now down. Luna lay down, resting her head on her paws. Stay. David walked 3 steps away. Luna remained perfectly still, watching him but not moving. The audience gasped. A predator that obeyed commands seemed to violate some fundamental law of nature. Wolves are incredibly intelligent. David continued. They're also loyal to their pack. When wolves live with humans, they accept humans as their pack. They trust us and we trust them. He turned back to Luna. Okay, come. Luna stood and trotted to his side, her movement fluid and graceful. Several students flinched, but Luna ignored them completely. Her attention was focused entirely on David. Reyna, who had been standing near the door, slowly walked forward. Her feathers were still puffed out, but her curiosity was overcoming her fear. May I approach? She asked. Of course, David said. Luna, this is Reyna. Be nice. Reyna came closer, step by cautious step. Luna watched her with interest, her head tilted slightly. When Reyna was within a meter, Luna's nose twitched, taking in the unfamiliar scent. Hold out your hand, David instructed. Let her smell you. Reyna extended one wing arm, trembling slightly. Luna sniffed carefully, then her tail wagged faster. She looked up at David as if asking for permission. Go ahead, David said softly. Luna took one step forward and gently pressed her nose against Reyna's wing. The avian student froze, her eyes wide. Luna sniffed again, then stepped back and sat down, apparently satisfied. She accepts you, David said with a smile. In wolf body language, that means she's decided you're not a threat. You're okay. Reyna let out a breath she had been holding. That was the most terrifying and wonderful experience of my life. A few more brave students approached. One by one, they let Luna sniff them while David explained wolf behavior, pack dynamics, and the long history between humans and wolves. By the end of the presentation, Luna was surrounded by a small group of students, all marveling at her thick fur and intelligent eyes. Professor Quinn approached last, moving slowly on his thin legs. David, this has been extraordinary. You have challenged everything we thought we knew about Earth's predators. I will be submitting a formal request to update our database immediately. David scratched behind Luna's ears. There are probably a lot of other Earth animals listed as extinct that aren't. Humans got pretty good at conservation once we figured out how important it was. Then perhaps, Professor Quinn said thoughtfully, you should give more presentations. The galactic community has much to learn about your homeworld. Luna yawned again, and this time only half the students flinched. Word spread through the station faster than a containment breach alert. Within hours of David's presentation, every student and faculty member knew about Luna. By the next day, 3 other professors had requested that David bring the wolf to their classes. The xenobiology department was in an uproar, demanding access to Earth's updated ecological databases. And the station's communication network was flooded with messages from other universities across the galaxy, all asking the same question. What else had they gotten wrong about Earth? David found himself sitting in Professor Quinn's office, Luna resting at his feet, while the insectoid professor paced back and forth in obvious agitation. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. I have been teaching xenobiology for 30 years, Quinn said, his voice clicking with frustration. 30 years. And now I discover that my entire section on Earth predators is based on faulty data. Do you understand how embarrassing this is? I'm sorry, David offered, though he was not entirely sure what he was apologizing for. The Council of Academic Standards is demanding explanations. How could such a significant error persist for so long? Who conducted the original Earth surveys? Why were they never updated? Professor Quinn stopped pacing and turned his compound eyes toward David. But more importantly, what else are we wrong about? David shrugged. I'm just a student. I don't know what your database says about Earth, but if you got wolves wrong, you probably got other things wrong too. Professor Quinn's antennae drooped in distress. He activated his desk's holographic display and pulled up file after file. According to our records, Earth lost over 2,000 species during your industrial era. The surveys were conducted during your 22nd century, when Earth was heavily polluted and ecosystems were collapsing. The researchers assumed most large predators had been wiped out, but humans started conservation efforts back in the 20th century, David explained. By the time we reached the 22nd century, a lot of species were already recovering. The surveys must have missed them. Missed them? How does one miss a wolf? Luna chose that moment to stand and shake herself, her fur rippling in waves. Professor Quinn flinched backward and David had to hide a smile. Wolves are shy around humans they don't know, David said. If your researchers were using drones or distant observation, the wolves would have hidden. And by that time, most wolves lived in protected areas, far from cities. Your surveyors probably never went there. Professor Quinn brought up another file. What about bears? According to this, all bear species on Earth are extinct except for a small population in captivity. Wrong. There are hundreds of thousands of bears across Earth. Black bears, brown bears, polar bears. They're all doing fine. Well, polar bears are struggling with climate change, but they're not extinct. Eagles? Tons of them. We brought back bald eagles from near extinction. Large cats, lions, tigers? Tigers are still endangered, but there are conservation programs. Lions are stable in Africa. We've even got mountain lions in North America. They sometimes wander into suburban neighborhoods. Professor Quinn sat down heavily, his exoskeleton creaking. This is a disaster. The entire galactic scientific community has been working with incorrect information for centuries. Every paper written about Earth ecology, every comparative study of predator behavior, every ecosystem model based on Earth data. All of it is wrong. Not all wrong, David said gently, just incomplete. And now you can fix it. A soft chime from the door interrupted them. Professor Quinn called for entry and Raina walked in, followed by Tav and 3 other students David recognized from the presentation. Professor, we apologize for interrupting, Raina said formally, but we have been researching Earth's ecology and we have questions. Any questions? Of course you do, Professor Quinn muttered. Tav stepped forward nervously, keeping a careful distance from Luna. David, I have been reading about wolf pack structure. The database says wolves hunt in coordinated packs, using sophisticated communication and strategy. Is this accurate? Absolutely, David confirmed. Wolves hunt together. They surround prey, cut off escape routes, and work as a team. A single wolf can't take down an elk, but a pack can. The reptilian student's scales rippled with unease. And humans lived alongside creatures that hunt with such intelligence and coordination? How did your species survive? David smiled. Because humans hunt the same way. We're pack hunters too. We coordinate, we plan, we work together. That's probably why wolves and humans got along. We understood each other. Silence filled the room. The students stared at David with expressions ranging from shock to horror. Even Professor Quinn's antennae stood straight up in surprise. You are saying humans are predators? A student with crystalline features asked quietly. Well, yeah, humans are omnivores, but we've always hunted. Before we had agriculture, humans survived by hunting animals. We used to chase prey for hours until they collapsed from exhaustion. It's called persistence hunting. I need to sit down, Tav said weakly, even though he was already sitting. David realized he had not understood how the aliens saw humans. To them, humans were just another species, maybe a bit odd, but basically harmless. The idea that humans were also predators had never occurred to them. We're not dangerous, David said quickly. Modern humans don't hunt for survival anymore. We have farms and stores. Most humans never hunt at all. But you could, Raina said slowly. If you needed to, humans could hunt. You have the instincts, the intelligence, the coordination. I suppose so, David admitted. Professor Quinn had pulled up human anatomical data on his display. Forward-facing eyes for depth perception. Hands capable of making and throwing weapons. Sweat glands for cooling during long chases. High endurance. You even have teeth designed for both plant matter and meat. He looked at David with what might have been newfound respect or fear. Humans are persistence predators that somehow developed advanced civilization. When you put it like that, it sounds scary, David said. But humans also developed art and music and literature. We're complicated. Luna stood and stretched, then walked over to Raina and sat directly in front of her. The avian student tensed, but Luna simply looked up at her with calm amber eyes. She wants you to pet her, David explained. You did it before and she liked you. She's asking for affection. Raina slowly reached out and touched Luna's head. The wolf leaned into her touch, tail wagging. A predator that wants affection, Raina marveled. A predator that trusts. That's what makes wolves special, David said. They could have stayed wild and feared humans forever. Instead, they chose to trust us, and we chose to protect them. That relationship goes both ways. Tav spoke up again, his voice stronger now. David, you said humans brought wolves back after nearly wiping them out. You said humans reintroduced them to places they had been eliminated. Why would a predator species help another predator species? Because we realized we needed them, David said, and because we understood them. Wolves aren't monsters. They're intelligent social creatures with complex emotions. They take care of their pack. They play, they mourn their dead. They're not that different from humans in a lot of ways. This is why humans were able to domesticate them, Professor Quinn said thoughtfully. Not because humans dominated wolves, but because both species recognized something familiar in each other. Exactly, David agreed. Dogs didn't happen because humans forced wolves to change. It happened because some wolves chose to stay near human camps and humans welcomed them. It was cooperation, not conquest. A student with tentacles raised one appendage. If wolves are not extinct, what about dogs? The database says there are billions of dogs on Earth. If they came from wolves, does that mean humans created billions of predators? David laughed. Dogs come in all sizes. Some are big like Luna, but some are small enough to carry in your pocket. My grandmother had a dog that weighed less than 3 kilograms. It barked at everything but couldn't hurt a fly. You took apex predators and made them into different sizes. The student sounded amazed. Over thousands of years, yeah. We bred dogs for different purposes. Hunting dogs, herding dogs, guard dogs, companion dogs. Humans shaped dogs, but dogs also shaped humans. We evolved together. Professor Quinn made a note on his datapad. David, I want you to prepare a series of lectures. Not just about wolves, but about human relationships with Earth predators. This is clearly a topic that the galactic community needs to understand better. I'm just a first-year student, David protested. You are the only human on this station who brought a wolf, Professor Quinn countered. That makes you the resident expert. Luna yawned and laid down at David's feet, completely comfortable in a room full of aliens who had been terrified of her just days before. David looked down at her and smiled. Somehow his companion animal had become a bridge between species, helping aliens understand not just wolves but humans too. All right, David agreed. I'll do it. But Luna comes with me to every lecture. I would not have it any other way, Professor Quinn said. David had given 4 more presentations about Earth predators over the past week, and each time the lecture halls were packed beyond capacity. Students from every department showed up, not just xenobiology majors. Even some faculty members attended, taking notes like first-year students. Luna had become so accustomed to the attention that she now walked calmly through crowds of aliens without hesitation, her tail wagging as dozens of different species reached out to touch her fur. But the real change happened on a quiet afternoon when David was walking Luna through the station's green sector, an area filled with plants from various worlds that provided oxygen and helped recycle the station's air. The pathways wound between trees that grew sideways, bushes that hummed softly, and flowers that changed colors based on time of day. Luna was sniffing an interesting patch of blue grass when David heard shouting from around the corner. He recognized one of the voices immediately as Tav, the reptilian student who had been so afraid of Luna during the first presentation. The other voice was deeper, more aggressive, and speaking in a language David did not recognize. He hurried around the corner with Luna, and found Tav backed against a wall by a large alien David had never seen before. The stranger had thick arms covered in bony plates, a wide mouth filled with grinding teeth and an expression of pure anger on his face. He was easily twice Tav's size and was using that size to intimidate the smaller student. Your presence on this station is an insult, the large alien snarled in standard galactic, apparently switching languages so Tav could understand him. Your species should never have been granted admission to this university. Please, I do not want trouble, Tav said, his voice shaking. His scales had turned pale with fear. Then you should leave, the stranger growled, moving closer. Hey, David called out. Back off. The large alien turned toward David with a sneer. This does not concern humans. Walk away. It concerns me when I see bullying, David said firmly. Luna, sensing the tension in his voice, moved to stand slightly in front of him. Her ears were forward, alert, and focused on the stranger. The alien noticed Luna for the first time and his eyes widened slightly. That is the wolf. The extinct predator everyone talks about. She's not extinct and she's not going to hurt anyone unless I tell her to, David said, which was not entirely true but sounded good. Now apologize to Tav and leave. You dare threaten me. The alien took a step toward David, raising one thick arm. Luna's entire demeanor changed in an instant. Her ears went flat against her skull. Her lips pulled back to show teeth that had been designed by millions of years of evolution for one purpose, bringing down prey. A low growl started deep in her chest, a sound that triggered instinctive fear in prey species across the galaxy. Her body lowered into a stance that anyone with working survival instincts would recognize as preparation to attack. The large alien froze. Despite being 3 times Luna's weight and covered in natural armor, some ancient part of his brain recognized a predator when he saw one. His aggression vanished, replaced by uncertainty and the first hints of fear. "Luna, steady," David said calmly. The growling stopped, but Luna did not relax her stance. She kept her eyes locked on the stranger, waiting. "I suggest you leave," David repeated. "Now." The alien looked between David, Luna, and Tav. He seemed to be calculating whether his pride was worth the risk of finding out what the wolf would do. Apparently, it was not. He backed away slowly, not turning his back on Luna until he was several meters away. Then he turned and walked quickly down the path, glancing back twice to make sure he was not being followed. David waited until the stranger was out of sight before kneeling down next to Luna. "Good girl. Stand down." Luna relaxed immediately, her ears coming forward and her tail beginning to wag. She looked up at David as if asking whether she had done the right thing. He scratched behind her ears and told her she was a very good wolf. Tav was still pressed against the wall, but now he was staring at Luna with something other than fear. It looked more like wonder. "Are you okay?" David asked him. Tav pushed away from the wall slowly, his scales gradually returning to their normal green color. "Yes, thank you." That was Cal, a student from a neighboring system. "He does not like my species. There has been political tension between our worlds for generations. Politics shouldn't follow students to university," David said firmly. "That's supposed to be neutral ground." "Not everyone believes that," Tav said quietly. He looked down at Luna, who was now sitting calmly at David's side. "She defended you. She saw that man as a threat to her pack and she responded. That's what wolves do," David explained. "They protect their pack members. Right now Luna sees me as her pack, and she saw someone threatening me, so she reacted. But she did not attack," Tav observed. "She warned him. She gave him a chance to leave peacefully." "Wolves don't want to fight unless they have to," David said. "Fighting means possible injury, and injury can mean death in the wild. So wolves use intimidation first. That growl and those teeth are warnings. Luna was saying, 'I can hurt you, so you should leave.' It's actually pretty smart." Tav was quiet for a moment, then slowly sat down on a nearby bench. Luna watched him but made no move to approach. "David, may I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "When Luna threatened Cal, I felt something strange. I was still afraid, yes. Every instinct I have told me to run from a predator showing aggression. But I was also grateful, because she was protecting someone. She was using her predator abilities to defend rather than to harm." "That's exactly right," David said, sitting down next to Tav. Luna lay down at his feet. "This makes me think," Tav continued slowly, "about my own species. We are herbivores. We evolved as prey animals. When we face aggression, our instinct is to flee or to freeze. We do not fight back because we are not built for fighting. But humans and wolves, you both evolved as hunters. You know how to face threats. You do not freeze in fear. Sometimes we get scared too," David admitted. "But yeah, I guess humans are more comfortable with confrontation. We've been dealing with predators and competing hunters for millions of years. And yet you use that ability to protect others," Tav said. "Not just other humans, but me. A prey species from a different world." "Why?" David thought about it. "Because it's the right thing to do? I don't know. I just saw someone being bullied and I wanted to help." Tav looked at Luna again, his head tilted in thought. "When I first saw her, I saw only danger. A predator that could kill me. But now I see something else. I see a creature that could choose to harm but chooses instead to protect. That is not something my species has ever encountered before. Most predators aren't mindless killers," David explained. "They eat when they're hungry and defend themselves when threatened. But they don't attack for no reason. Luna has never hurt anyone. She's never even tried to hurt anyone. The closest she's come is growling at Cal, and that was only because she thought he was going to hurt me." Tav stood up slowly and took a step toward Luna. The wolf watched him, but did not move. He took another step, then another. When he was close enough, he extended one clawed hand and held it out, palm up, the way he had seen other students do. Luna sniffed his hand carefully, her nose twitching. Then she looked up at David, seeking permission. "It's okay, girl. Tav's a friend." Luna stood and moved closer to Tav, letting him touch her head. The reptilian student's hand trembled slightly as he felt her thick fur, the solid muscle beneath it. the warmth of her body. "I have been afraid my whole life," Tav said quietly. "Afraid of predators, afraid of aggression, afraid of confrontation. My species settled planets with no large predators specifically to avoid this fear. And now here I am, touching a creature my ancestors would have fled from, and I am not afraid. Or at least I am less afraid than I was." "Luna has that effect on people," David said with a smile. "She's a good ambassador for wolves. And for predators in general, I guess." Tav scratched behind Luna's ears the way he had seen David do, and Luna's tail wagged in approval. "David, you said humans brought wolves back after nearly destroying them. You said you reintroduced them to places they had been eliminated. This shows incredible wisdom. To recognize that predators are necessary, even when they are dangerous." "Humans learned a lot of hard lessons about ecology," David said. "We made a lot of mistakes before we figured out how everything connects." "But you did figure it out," Tav said. "And now you share that knowledge with us. With species that never had to learn those lessons because we avoided predators instead of living alongside them." Luna sat down and leaned against Tav's legs. The reptilian student froze for just a moment, then slowly relaxed. He looked down at the wolf and then at David, and for the first time since David had met him, Tav smiled. "Thank you," Tav said simply, "for bringing Luna, for showing us that predators are not monsters, for helping me face my fear." "Anytime," David replied. "That's what pack members do." As they walked back toward the main corridor together, Luna walking calmly between them, David noticed something had changed. Students no longer moved away when they saw Luna coming. Some still kept their distance, but others waved or called out greetings. A few even asked if they could pet her. Luna had become more than a curiosity. She had become part of the station's community, a living reminder that different species could coexist peacefully, even when one of them was a predator that should have been extinct. 3 weeks after Luna's first appearance in Professor Quinn's classroom, the station's main assembly hall was filled beyond its designed capacity. Students sat on floors, stood against walls, and some had even brought cushions to sit in the aisles. The announcement had gone out across the entire university network. Humans were hosting a special presentation about Earth fauna, and attendance was encouraged for all species. David stood backstage with Luna and felt more nervous than he had for any exam in his life. This was different from the classroom presentations. This was public, official, and being recorded for transmission to other universities across the galaxy. What had started as a simple correction about wolves had somehow turned into a major scientific revelation. "Are you ready?" Raina asked, adjusting her ceremonial vest. She had agreed to help coordinate the presentation, managing the holographic displays while David spoke. "Not really," David admitted, "but I don't think waiting is going to make me more ready." Luna sensed his anxiety and pressed against his leg, offering comfort the way she always did. He scratched her ears and took a deep breath. Professor Quinn appeared from the main hall, his antennae vibrating with excitement. "David, we have representatives from 12 universities watching via live feed. The Galactic Ecological Council has sent observers. This is unprecedented." "No pressure," David muttered. "There is one more thing," Professor Quinn said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "We have received communications from other human students at universities across the galaxy. It seems you are not the only one who brought supposedly extinct Earth animals to school." David looked up sharply. "What?" "A human student at Centauri Academic Institute has a dog. Another at the Vega Science Center has apparently been keeping rescue birds. A third has something called a horse in the agricultural section of their station. They all assumed, as you did, that these animals were common knowledge. They are now coming forward with their animals." David felt a strange mix of relief and amusement. So Luna wasn't unique. There are other humans out there with Earth animals that aliens think are extinct. Precisely, which makes this presentation even more important. You are not just correcting the record about wolves. You are opening a dialogue about Earth's entire ecosystem. The announcement chime sounded, indicating 5 minutes until the start. David nodded to Professor Quinn and walked toward the stage entrance, Luna walking calmly at his side. The moment he stepped onto the stage, the crowd noise shifted. Hundreds of students from dozens of species all stopped talking at once. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the room focused on the human and the wolf. David walked to the center of the stage where a simple podium had been set up. Luna sat beside him, completely calm despite the massive audience. She had grown accustomed to crowds over the past weeks. "Thank you all for coming," David began, his voice amplified by the hall's sound system. "My name is David Reed. I'm a first-year biology student from Earth. This is Luna. 3 weeks ago, I learned that the galactic database listed wolves as extinct. I'm here today to talk about that error, but more importantly, to talk about why that error happened and what it means for how we understand Earth." Raina activated the holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly in the air above David's head. 400 years ago, during Earth's 22nd century, a team of alien researchers conducted a survey of Earth's fauna. They found a planet still recovering from severe environmental damage. Pollution was high, ecosystems were damaged, and many species were endangered or extinct. The researchers made detailed notes, compiled their data, and submitted their findings to the galactic database. The image changed to show deforested landscapes, polluted rivers, and empty forests. Their data was accurate for that specific moment in time, but Earth didn't stay frozen in that moment. Humans continued working to heal the damage we had caused. We cleaned our air and water. We established protected reserves. We passed laws to prevent hunting of endangered species. And most importantly, we started bringing back animals we had nearly destroyed. New images appeared showing healthy forests, clear rivers, and thriving wildlife. The survey was never updated. For 4 centuries, the galactic community believed that Earth remained a damaged world with limited biodiversity. But that was never true. Earth recovered. We recovered. And we did it by understanding one crucial truth. We need predators. David gestured to Luna. Wolves, bears, big cats, eagles. These animals aren't monsters. They're essential parts of their ecosystems. When we removed them, everything fell apart. When we brought them back, everything healed. A student near the front raised a tentacle. But why would prey species like humans protect predator species? Your survival instinct should tell you to eliminate threats. Because humans are also predators, David said simply. We're omnivores who evolved as hunters. We understand predators because we are predators. We hunt in groups, we plan strategies, we use tools. The difference is that humans developed technology and agriculture, so we didn't need to hunt for survival anymore. But we never forgot how to hunt, and we never stopped understanding predators. The hall erupted in whispered conversations. David waited for the noise to settle before continuing. Humans didn't domesticate wolves by dominating them. We didn't force them to change. About 40,000 years ago, some wolves chose to stay near human camps. They ate our food scraps. They warned us when danger approached. And humans welcomed them because we recognized something familiar. Both species hunted in packs. Both species used cooperation and intelligence. Both species protected their families. The holographic display showed ancient cave paintings of humans and wolves hunting together. Over thousands of years, those wolves changed. We call them dogs now. There are billions of them on Earth living with human families. But wolves still exist too. Wild and free in forests and mountains. Both exist because humans chose to protect them. Professor Quinn stepped forward from the side of the stage. David, we have received a communication from another human student. Would you like to respond? David nodded. A video screen appeared showing a young woman standing next to a large 4-legged animal with a long face and flowing mane. Hi, I'm Beth, the woman said through the video feed. I'm at Andromeda Station. This is my horse, Copper. I've been hiding him in the agricultural section because I was told horses were extinct. But they're not. There are millions of horses on Earth. We've been partners with them for thousands of years. More videos appeared. A man with a large dog. A woman with a bird of prey perched on her arm. A teenager with a sleek cat. We all thought we were alone, Beth's voice continued. We thought we were the only ones who knew these animals weren't extinct. But David brought his wolf to class, and now we know we can stop hiding. The assembly hall was completely silent. David looked out at the crowd and saw expressions of amazement, confusion, and wonder on faces across the room. Earth isn't a damaged world full of extinct species, David said firmly. Earth is a recovered world full of life. We made terrible mistakes, but we learned from them. We brought back species we almost destroyed. We protected habitats. We changed our behavior to live alongside nature instead of destroying it. That's the real story of Earth, not extinction, recovery. Tav stood up from his seat in the middle section. David, may I ask a question? Of course. You said humans are predators who learn to protect other predators. You said you recognize something familiar in wolves. Does this mean humans see other predator species as potential partners rather than threats? David thought carefully about his answer. I think humans understand predators in a way that prey species might not. We know that predators aren't evil or cruel. They're just trying to survive like everyone else. And yes, I think humans are more comfortable with predators because we understand the mindset. We can work with predators because we think like predators. This explains much about human behavior, Professor Quinn observed. Your species' approach to conflict, your military strategies, your negotiation tactics, all of it reflects predator thinking. Maybe, David agreed, but it also means humans understand cooperation and pack loyalty. Predators aren't solitary by nature. Most hunt in groups. They protect their young. They communicate and coordinate. Those aren't savage traits. They're social traits. Luna chose that moment to stand and shake herself, her fur rippling. She yawned, showing teeth that still made some students flinch. Then she walked to the edge of the stage and sat down, looking out at the audience as if she were judging them. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The tension broke. Can we pet her? A student called out. David smiled. Sure, come on up. Just a few at a time. Students began filing onto the stage, nervous but curious. Luna greeted each one calmly, letting them touch her fur and sniff her breath. Some took pictures, others just stood nearby, marveling at a creature that should have been extinct. Raina landed next to David. You did well. This will change how the galaxy sees Earth. I just talked about my dog, David said with a shrug. She is not a dog. She is a wolf, and that difference matters. Raina looked at the students surrounding Luna. They are learning that predators can be gentle, that dangerous creatures can choose peace. That is a powerful lesson. Professor Quinn approached with a data pad. David, the Galactic Ecological Council wants to fund a complete survey of Earth. They want to document every species, update every file, and ensure the database is accurate. They are asking if you would be willing to serve as a consultant. I'm just a student, David protested again. You are a human who brought a wolf to class and changed galactic science, Professor Quinn corrected. I would say that qualifies you. Later that evening, David sat in his quarters with Luna curled up beside him. His communication device had over 300 messages from students, professors, and researchers across the galaxy. All of them wanted to know more about Earth, about its animals, about humans. Luna's tail thumped against the floor. She looked up at David with amber eyes that had seen 40,000 years of partnership between two species. We really made a mess of things, didn't we, girl? David said softly. Humans almost destroyed wolves. Almost destroyed so many species. But we fixed it. We learned, and now we get to teach aliens about second chances. Luna put her head on his lap, content and comfortable in a space station orbiting a distant star, surrounded by species from across the galaxy, an apex predator that should have been extinct, living proof that humans could learn from their mistakes. David scratched behind her ears and smiled. Good girl. Very good girl. Outside his window, stars wheeled slowly through the darkness, and somewhere on Earth, millions of wolves ran through forests that humans had saved, hunting in packs the way they had for millions of years, thriving because one species of persistence predator had decided that other predators deserved to live too. The galactic database would be updated. Canis lupus status changed to thriving, protected by humans, not extinct, never truly extinct, just waiting to be seen.